So, this week, episode 90 of the Unboxable podcast, we have Dr. Jenny Tufenkian. She's an ND, which means Naturopathic Doctor. And we're really going to cover some great ground around illness, fatigue, burnout, particularly chronic fatigue, and how she's found this amazing system to individualize her treatments, both in groups and with individual patients, so that it really addresses the root causes, including subconscious causes of chronic fatigue. And her approach is not revolutionary, been around for a long time in many different cultures, but what is revolutionary is the way that she's incorporating it with medical and medicine and conventional wisdom. So I really love Dr. Jenny's approach, and it's such a pleasure to talk to her on this. She offers a lot of value in this conversation. She gives some great insights into what you can do if you're experiencing chronic fatigue. And I'll also pop in at some point and share with you something that I've been working on to also support people who are experiencing illness, burnout, just hustling too much, even when they actually need to be stopping, resting, restoring. And really looks at a little bit, why we don't rejuvenate when we need to. And even when we're ill, we feel like we can't stop and respect our body's need to slow down. So this conversation is really powerful and really full of value. And I'm so excited for you to hear my conversation with Dr. Jenny Tufenkian. Welcome to the Unboxable podcast, because there has never been a better time to step into your big girl shoes and realize that you are made for more joy, more alignment with your life purpose, and more connection. I'm Elena Turley, and I'm inviting you to join me in exploring how we can connect within ourselves and with those in our circles more deeply, so we can make big change while still showing up as the best mothers, women, and humans possible. Let's begin. I have one question that I start with, which is, who are you, where are you, and what do you love to do? So 3 questions in one.
Who am I? Where am I? And what do I love to do? Well, I am in Portland, Oregon, on the west coast of the United States, and I am a physician. I'm a naturopathic physician. I've been doing this for a couple of decades. And what I love to do, gosh, so many things that I love to do, but really my passion right now is very tied into my work. And my whole vision for becoming a physician was to really empower people in their own self-care. And in my life experience, I got chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalitis, and was incredibly ill. I've been down a couple times in my life. And now, since we've had the pandemic, we've had this thing called long COVID that is affecting the world. And so one of my passions is solving for X. What is it that triggers people to go into this spin of this chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalitis, long COVID picture, and how do they get out? And I'd say that part of my passion, and I feel like the mission that drives me with this, is that I really see that we're more than just this physical body. We're this physical, mental, emotional, and energetic body. And part of what I feel that I'm here to do is to share that for people who want to understand a different way of being with themselves and in the world. And that sometimes dis-ease can be a window or an opportunity for us to uncover some part of ourselves that we weren't aware of. And it's kind of like that illness can be a window into something that maybe your subconscious was kind of knocking on you and saying, hey, psst, maybe you want to look at this. Maybe you want to think
Yeah.
about this for your life. And it can be that. And so I really love this part of being completely in the world. And even when things are challenging, of looking at it as an opportunity. Doesn't mean that every minute of it you love it. I sure don't when I'm in it.
I hear you.
I want to get out. I think it's going to last forever. I hate it. I want a magic
Yeah.
pill. I've been
Yeah.
there too, yet. And
Yeah.
when we just take a breath and, have our cry or scream or a meltdown, whatever, and then move to the next thing, there can be often this amazing unveiling that happens. So I'd
Yep.
say my passion is that, I'm a seeker, and I love working with people who are also interested in seeking better health, but seeking also on multiple levels.
Yes, seeking the fullness of our being and the
Totally.
wholeness of our being, right? So
Absolutely.
now I know why we're here together, Jenny, because that's me too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I'm not going to talk about me today because I've got too many questions for you, but yes to all of what you just said.
Uh-huh.
And the first question I just wanted to clarify for people listening and for anyone also experiencing something like what you're talking about, what's the difference between chronic fatigue syndrome
Mhm.
and long COVID? Are they the same? Are they linked? What can you
I
talk to
see
me
them
about
as
that?
I see them as the same. So I see
Yeah.
myalgic encephalitis. So the rest of the world is called myalgic, and the United States calls it chronic fatigue syndrome, which is a terrible name. The rest of the world has called it myalgic
We
encephalitis, which is
call
a
it chronic fatigue as well in
oh, do
Australia.
you? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So myalgic encephalitis is a much better term, and there's a move in the United States among the doctors that work with this condition to start calling it ME because it is a better description. And as I say, if you say I have myalgic encephalitis, people are more willing to bring you lasagna. Hopefully, it's gluten-free, dairy-free lasagna than if you
Sounds
just
more
say
serious.
I have chronic fatigue, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm tired too. It's like, no, 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 you don't get it.
So
It's
what does that mean, the term that it's being changed to, myalgic
mhm.
encephalitis? What does that mean?
Myalgic encephalitis is inflammation in the body and in the brain. And that's what's going on. There is inflammation, there's chronic inflammation,
Yeah.
and it can be triggered by multiple things. It's not triggered by the same thing in
Yeah.
everybody. And
Yeah.
there are common root causes. And there's us. And so what I would say about long COVID is COVID, SARS-CoV-2, for 30% of the people who got a COVID infection, it was the instigating trigger. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was the thing
Right.
that triggered your body into this period of dysregulation.
Yeah.
And that dysregulation is on the immune system level, the endocrine level, the hormonal level, and it's on the nervous system level. So a lot of people have
Mhm.
autonomic nervous system disorders like POTS, partial orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or they have mental emotional changes. They feel more anxious or depressed because of it. They can feel there's all different kinds of things that it can be triggered. So for
Yes.
those who got long COVID, that was the thing that triggered into it. Now, what I will say, because I've had both in my own body and I've treated both with my clients and patients,
Yeah.
is that there is a unique pattern to COVID, to long COVID, that's a little bit different than some other viral triggers. So Lyme, we could talk about chronic Lyme disease, and
Yeah.
that's one of those interesting, challenging things to treat because that that critter literally shapeshifts. It starts out as a spirochete, it gets into your body and then becomes a cell-less wall form. I mean, it literally shifts into other things. It's very tricky.
Fascinating.
It's crazy. And then if you deluge your body, deluge with a bunch of antibiotics, it goes, oh, whoa, we're under attack, and it hides under a biofilm so that the antibiotics can't get to it. Like if it stayed in a spirochete form, that would have worked, but now it's hiding in this other
Wow.
form. And so it's very tricky. It's tricky to catch. COVID doesn't shapeshift in that same way, yet it is a bizarre condition where you think you're on it and then it takes a sharp left turn in a different direction. So
Right.
it's sneakier and more challenging as an underlying trigger to address than some of the other infections. A
Yep.
lot of the other infections are a lot more straightforward once you start treating them. It doesn't mean that you can't. It just means that it's a little bit more of a journey and a little bit more of a project.
Right. Amazing. And so the obvious thing that comes to mind as a
Mhm.
novice in this conversation, I mean, I'm not a complete novice, but I'm going to act like I am. Okay.
Okay.
So where do you start? Do you
Where do I
start with
first start?
diet? Do you start with lifestyle changes? Do you start with spiritual healing? Or does that depend on the person? Or do you have a framework that you have seen works best? What's the entry point?
Yeah, so for me, the entry point, I do have a framework, and yet the framework is individualized for the person.
Yeah,
It depends
sure.
on where they,
Always, right?
yeah, exactly, always, because some of the people that are dealing with this condition, some people who have long COVID had myalgic encephalitis for years or decades prior, and some it's brand new. Some people are
Mm,
17 years old and they had a lot of vitality and they got COVID, and that's
I
very
know
different
some
than
kids
working
like
with
that
somebody. Yeah,
with POTS.
yeah, exactly. There's a lot of kids, teenagers that I'm working with POTS. And or I have patients who are 73 years old and their bodies are different in terms of what they can handle.
Of
People
course.
come in with different places where they are with lifestyle. Some people have
Yeah.
been nailed in that absolute perfect for diet. They're eating beautifully. They're doing all the
Yeah.
amazing things. They have an incredible support structure. We don't need to go there. So for me
Yeah.
to say everybody should start here would be silly. Other
Right.
people are eating what we call a sad diet here, standard American diet. I don't know if you have an ad in Australia.
Sad diet.
Yeah, in
That's
Australia.
so good.
Do you have like, I guess it would be sad in Australia too, a standard Australian diet where it's
I'm
just,
going to use that now. That's
yeah, it's
great.
like, it's sort of here, that would be, oh, I'm going to Starbucks and I'm getting my
Ultra
pumpkin,
processed.
ultra processed, high sugar, high fat, using caffeine as the energy source. Most
Not
can't be
many whole
sugar.
foods.
Yeah. So
High
those are,
sugar.
yeah, lots of sugar, lots of, yeah, highly refined. So that said, so where do I start? In my online programs where I have people where they can guide themselves, I guide
Yeah,
them through this process. There are health foundations that are very important to look at,
of
because
course. Yeah.
without those health foundations in place.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a very special announcement. Me again inviting you now to download a free guide that helps you to break habits, always wanting to do, instead of focusing on the BBB. So we have these habits of hustle. There's a long, complicated story about where they come from. But what I would like to offer you is a stream of loving support for you to bust through the layers of self-doubt and overthinking that are in the way of you living your most wonderful and empowered and boldest life. And I know sometimes that is illness, and I know sometimes that is low energy and all kinds of issues that get in the way. So here's a really simple, short, sharp, and to the point, evidence-based guide giving you somatic practices to help you look differently at how to bring your energy back really simply and really solidly. So what have you got to lose? You can download it at alenaturley.com/3 ways. That is alenaturley.com/3-ways. I can't wait for you to take a look. Let me know what you think when you do. Okay, back to the podcast.
It's just like your house. If you don't have one side of your foundation, if it's crumbling, that house isn't going to be very stable. Like any other building, the stronger you want that building to be, like the big
Yeah.
tall skyscrapers, they have
Yeah.
deep foundations. That's frankly what you
Yeah.
want. You want a solid
Yeah.
foundation with your sleep and your digestion, detoxification, and
It's
your
sleep, sweat, and diet, isn't it? It's like
all.
exercise, food, and
Yeah.
rest are the
So
three for
yeah,
sure.
those are all those things. And the people who have myalgic encephalitis or long COVID, often those are disrupted. And
Yes.
like if your nervous system is upset, a lot. When I got long COVID, it felt like it was trippy. I could feel it had come in and attacked my mitochondria overnight. It was like all
Right.
of a sudden I had no energy. It just reactivated my ME literally overnight. I went from kayaking and hiking and doing everything I wanted to
Wow.
do with no limitations to,
Yeah.
and then 7 days of an acute COVID infection, felt like I was recovering quite well. And then on day 9, I woke up and I was like, oh no, complete
Yeah.
overnight transformation into
Yeah.
ME, and couldn't chew the cabbage salad I'd made the day before. Like I didn't have the energy in
So
my
it
mouth.
tipped into it very
Oh, it's
distinctly.
trippy as heck. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the symptoms I felt was, it felt like it attacked my mitochondria. It also felt like the virus went into my vagus nerve, and which is this longest nerve in your body, and it goes up
Yep.
to your limbic brain and is part of your assessing for safety and danger.
Yeah.
Limbic dysfunction is one of the root causes that people can trigger people getting
Yes.
into myalgic
Sure.
encephalitis. And it literally felt to me like this something was coming into my vagus nerve, and it was like it's like this electric shock kind of vibration. It
Wow.
literally felt like a vibration. It's like this. So I mean, I get like there are sometimes there are things that you feel in your body that you're afraid if you told your doctor they'd think you were crazy. And that's
Yeah.
one of them. If I went into a
Mm.
standard doctor and said, it feels like my body's vibrating and my vagus nerve is going, they'd be like, yeah, okay, honey. So it's really interesting how it can
Yeah.
impact. And so that, because it can have such an impact on the nervous system,
Yeah.
and that kind of nervous inflammation can also trigger different moods and emotional experiences, and it can trigger anxiety and depression and those kinds of things. And if you're not aware of it, it can really flip that limbic brain, which I felt
Sure.
like my brain wanted to go there, and it did to a certain
Yeah.
extent, but not as much because I knew that was happening. But that can affect
Wow.
sleep. So like back to what I was trying to get back to is the health foundations. Some people can't sleep once they have these things because their nervous system is so irritated
Yeah.
that it's hard to calm down, and their whole day night rhythm is dysregulated. And so that, you can say, oh yeah, you should go sleep, but it may be that we really need to look, why can't you sleep? Like, why isn't your sleep restful? And dig into that. And again, that may be different for one person versus another person.
And it's not just as simple as you need more rest. That's for
Right.
sure.
Exactly. Because some people go to bed. I have patients that go to bed and, they're really good about going to bed, and they're like, I go to bed at 10, but I'm awake till 1. And
Yeah.
so we talk about different strategies and things that they can do
Yeah.
to work on getting their body to recognize that it is time to rest and get into that deep sleep.
Here's where I feel I'm thinking at the moment about a friend of mine. We're going to call her Jay. I'm going to send her this when we're done. Okay.
Okay.
Jay is a beautiful friend. We go camping once a year together. So we have these intense periods of spending, 4 or 5 days in deep conversation, and then we don't really speak. So
Mhm.
once a year I see her. And the last couple of times I've seen her, she has been experiencing what you're talking about, chronic fatigue and this kind of gray area. Like she was a human rights lawyer.
Yeah.
She's got 2 kids with special needs, like she's
Yeah.
under the pump. Her husband's away almost all the time. So she's been under the pump for a long time,
Mhm.
right? She's an amazing, intelligent woman who I
Mhm.
greatly respect, who I adore.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I've been watching her experience this thing, and her, quite rightly, her response is to seek out conventional medical intervention, okay?
Mhm.
And maybe some acupuncture, but she's sort of at the point where she can't even drive herself to an acupuncture appointment. She's there for a really long time.
Yeah.
And, her husband's away, right?
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
does she do?
Yeah.
So I'm really curious, for someone who is from that very conventional mainstream
Mhm.
culture
Mhm.
where, acupuncture is actually pretty well accepted here now, but still,
Mhm.
if that's the most alternative, okay, that
Mhm.
they're willing to go,
Yeah.
is that where you start with the diet? And is that where you just walk them through this framework and you look at the rest and you look at do you think they can accept these more spiritual forms of intervention? Like, you've mentioned that, but you haven't talked to me more about that. Like, how do you introduce a more alternative or spiritual perspective to someone who is a mainstream conventional,
Yeah, it's a good question. I really meet people where they're at, and
Yeah.
there are lots of ways to work on the physical, mental, emotional, and energetic body. It's my perspective that that's what something we all have. Not everybody wants to talk about that, and that's okay with me. I tend to I tend to attract, as the years go by, I tend to attract more and more people who are more and more in alignment with what I do. I think
Naturally, right?
they
Yeah.
want to totally take advantage of what it is that I can offer them. So those are
Yes.
the people that tend. But over the decades that I've practiced, I've had people with completely different cosmology than me, and that's fine. I don't
Yeah,
need
sure.
to project my version of what I see in the world on anyone. I'm really
Great. And I
here
think that's a common misconception that
yeah,
you would. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Because I'm
yeah.
similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am a physician, and
Yes.
my oath is to serve those that are
Of
in front of
course.
me, and I do, and I serve with respect and love for everyone. And I personally am very left brain and right brain. So my left brain loves the
Mm,
research. I
mm.
do have this very deep differential diagnosis that I go through. That's the fancy word that doctors use to say I'm ruling in or ruling out different things. As you tell
It's
me
the
your
flow chart.
symptoms,
Yeah.
I'm ruling in, ruling out, okay, they're saying that the tired feels like this. It feels heavy in their legs, or they have
Yeah.
tingling, weird tingling sensations in their skin. I'm
Yeah.
ruling in, ruling out. Do I think this is viral?
Sure.
Do I think this is mitochondria? Do I think this is limbic? What do I think this
Yeah.
is? And or is it anemia, or do we need to do a cancer screen? I mean, what is
Yes.
going on
Yes.
here? And then I run conventional labs. I do as many labs as I can that
Yeah.
are conventional, because a lot of times people can get those covered by their insurance and it saves them a few dollars.
Yeah.
There may be there are also labs that I run that are functional medicine labs. And
Yeah.
there's nothing woo woo about these. These are labs. They just happen
No.
to not be viewed as part of the conventional system, but they can be fantastic, for looking
Mm.
for, is your immune system reacting to mycotoxins or mold? Is that part of what's
Mm.
going on with you? Or
It's data. I mean, it gives you
it's
data,
data,
right? Yeah.
totally. Yeah. Or what is your microbiome? Or is there some low grade amoeba or parasite that doesn't show up on the
Yes.
standard test, but you send it in for a better kind of way to test, then we can figure out what's going on. Is there
Yes.
inflammation in your gut? What is your, what are your immune system parameters? What does your body think it's fighting?
So you're painting a picture.
Yeah. So I'm painting a picture. So I do very left brain stuff.
Right.
And so I do that. And then the right brain is really a combination of all of us. No matter what you practice, you get really good at it. They call it,
Yeah.
there's different kinds of intuition. And one of the kinds of intuition, frankly, just comes out of experience. I love to recreational sail, and people who are really good sailors, they kind of have an intuitive sense of where the wind, the next puff might be, right? But some
Yeah.
of that is frankly from experience. And
Yeah.
they're picking up little subtle signs in the water, the leaves, the feeling on their cheek without even thinking about it. I'm
It's
doing the
so
same thing.
true. It's so
And
true. I find the
and
same in my
you're doing the
practice.
same thing.
I'll
Yeah.
just mention something.
Yeah.
It happened this
Sure.
morning. I was with a
Yeah.
one-to-one client. I mentioned something. She was like, I was literally just thinking about that on the way here.
Yeah.
She thinks that's psychic. I'm like, it doesn't feel any different to any other thought. I just know to trust
Right.
my thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so that is so there is, and some of that just frankly comes from sitting with patient after patient after
Yeah.
patient for
Totally
decades
true.
and being
And
in the space. Yeah.
so what does that look like when you do, let's flip over now, flip
Yeah.
that coin over
Yeah.
to when you do begin to explore with someone who's open to it,
Sure.
the more spiritual side of these ailments.
Sure.
What does
And
that look like for you when you're in
yeah,
practice?
yeah. And if I can, let me just talk about the middle piece for a second here,
Oh, yeah,
because
sure.
what I was going to say is, if somebody comes in and they're very in their left brain, and they don't see this. I mean, one of the questions I often ask, I'm very curious about people's spiritual orientation, because that helps me give a framework to have the conversation
Sure.
with them.
Yeah.
But for some people, they're very in their left brain, but that doesn't mean we can't access those other levels through things. There are certain remedies that are designed to work on those levels. Acupuncture is one of those that will work
Yes.
on the mental, the physical,
Amazing.
mental, and the energetic. Chinese herbal combinations will work on all those levels. Some homeopathy or different things like that can work on all those levels. So sometimes or essential oils.
And
Essential
I
oils.
have somatic practices. I
Yeah,
can
exactly.
get to people
Exactly.
through the body by
Exactly.
setting up a dialogue with the
Exactly.
body. Yeah.
Exactly. And what I love now is that the stuff that I've been talking about for decades
Yeah.
used to be considered incredibly woo-woo, but now we
I know.
literally have scientific papers in
It's so
esteemed
cool.
peer-reviewed journals to
Isn't it
say,
the best?
look,
I
it
know.
works.
It's
Here's
the
the
best. I'm like,
data.
there's no difference anymore. Like,
It's
it's just,
like,
and then we can
so
always just say it's quantum physics. Like, if we don't have an
yeah,
explanation, we can always just say,
yeah,
it's quantum physics,
yeah,
do a Joe
yeah.
Dispenza. Yeah.
So that is, and thank goodness for Joe Dispenza and all
I
the
know.
research that he and his team are doing,
Yeah.
because that
Amazing.
really allows us to be even, to allow us to bridge that connection so that we can all be in our
Yes.
power fully, and to not close ourselves off because it doesn't fit into something, because science is kind of the thing that we all believe in right now.
There's more than just the Western worldview. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but to answer your question, so somebody comes in and they want to work on that other level. Again, it depends on what comes up. I tend to do a lot of subconscious, if I'm working with people one-on-one, and even in my group, we've had some amazing breakthrough sessions doing subconscious work. If people are comfortable
Mhm.
doing that in a very safe group setting, I'll lead them through
What
a
does that mean?
subconscious process, or a group.
Subconscious process.
Subconscious. So I'm sure you know that we have our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. And I would say, if you imagine a pie or a circle, imagine a pie, imagine a blueberry pie, because I have like 80 pounds of blueberries in my freezer that I picked this year. So imagine only 5% of that, like, so that's a really tiny, tiny, tiny slice of blueberry pie, is your conscious brain. The rest
Yeah.
is all unconscious. And the conscious brain that's the thinking process that we're aware of. It's often it's what we think we are in terms of our consciousness, but truly we are so much more than that. Part of that unconscious mind is driving physiology. It's controlling heartbeats and breath, and it's working to control that. And there's a lot of information and data in the unconscious mind. Everything we've experienced in utero to present is in that unconscious mind. Every sound, emotional experience, color, every visual experience, it's all in there. And that unconscious mind loves a good story. Like we all love a good
Yeah.
story. It loves
Yeah.
a good narrative. So it starts to make connections between those experiences. So,
Yeah.
and often those run us. They create our lives. They are the thing,
Yes.
I talk about, yeah, they're the thing that can really form what our experiences in life are. And
Yes.
and often if we're experiencing dis-ease, illness, discomfort, lack of joy, frustration,
Yes.
emotional things that are hard, it's because sometimes it's often because there are things in that unconscious mind that if we were to work with them and have a conversation with them, examine them, or a technical word would be consolidate that experience for you. If you've had
Yes.
trauma, consolidate the experience,
Or integrate is another word I
integrate,
use. Yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
Then it doesn't need to be, then you get to have now access to that, the power, that part of your brain.
Beautiful way to explain it. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's an incredible thing, and I find it's something that it's a practice I use on myself and I use with clients,
Mm.
and it's beautiful and very powerful for those who are interested in doing it. And what I do really depends. It's a bit of an eclectic combination. I've had multiple trainings and different
I was
things.
going to
And
say this is a multimodal approach. Like this is
yeah,
definitely your own version of
yeah,
a combination of all the things you've learned, which I do as well. Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah. So, sometimes it's parts work, inner child work. I'm trained in something
Yeah.
called Psych K. It can be, any version of
Yeah.
those, and it really
Yeah.
depends. And we go where some people who are very aware of that part of their being, then we go to places where, we can go to some pretty wild places. And
Yeah. Sure.
other people where this may be a new experience for them, it
Yes.
can be a little bit, it's, maybe a little bit more guided. But I
Yeah.
would say, and I love doing this work, the subconscious work,
Me
because it feels
too.
magic.
Magic.
And in the
Mm.
sense that we are really I'm really letting, you, the person that I'm working with, guide
Yeah.
the process. There's
Yeah.
nothing that's being forced on you. It's
You're a
really
facilitator. Yeah.
facilitating what needs to
Yeah.
happen there in a very respectful way. And I
Yeah.
have seen so many profound shifts. I got a phone call from somebody a few months ago who wanted to come back and see me, but I only saw her just maybe 3 times about 15 years
Mm.
ago.
Mm.
And she was somebody that had never done anything like this. This was a
Yeah.
totally new thing for her, but she was very exhausted and
Mm.
struggling with mood and energy. And she was probably in her 30s, if I'm remembering correctly, mid 30s.
Mm.
And we did a couple of subconscious sessions. And I remember them as being really profound. Like she really went in
Yeah.
there and we did a
Yeah.
really great thing. And then I didn't see her. And as a doctor,
Yeah.
you never know what that means.
No,
Like you don't get a follow up.
you don't follow up. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. But she reached out and she's like, you totally changed my life. I had never thought that I never knew anything about this, but we had
Yeah.
that session and I went home and I was completely changed and I felt
Yeah.
better. Like I had all this energy, and then, that lasted 15 years, and then some crisis came up and she wanted to come in for more. So
Yeah.
and I've seen that over and over again where
Yep.
sometimes that's the thing.
Yep.
Not everybody's different, but that sometimes it
Sure. No, I've
can be.
experienced that too. I've
Yeah,
experienced that as well. And it's
yeah.
the main reason I do what I do
Hmm.
because I know the power of it.
Right.
And there's an intersection with, people, divine right timing as well.
Totally.
There's this magical, there's like the decision, the willingness, the timing,
Yeah.
sometimes the group, there's a magical intersection of all of those things that can
Yes.
really
Yes.
facilitate. Yeah.
Right.
And I've
Yeah.
experienced it from both sides, doing that with someone else and also having someone else do that with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Changes the way we look and feel. And, it's a fundamental shift,
It
like a
is a fundamental
paradigm shift,
It is a fundamental paradigm shift. And that's the thing where, I mean, if you're really talking about root cause, what is your root cause of what is causing you to be exhausted and getting your
Yeah.
body regulated? If it is on this limbic emotional level,
Yeah.
getting in there and rewiring the subconscious, it's a complete game changer because you're reforming the blueprint of how
Mm.
you work. And
And releasing
you know,
obstacles as
yeah,
well, like
right,
releasing
exactly.
blocks, right?
Yeah. And I think sometimes the work, my experience is sometimes the work is it's like you're going through different layers. So sometimes it feels
Yeah.
like, okay, that felt better, that was good, but there's still something else. Okay, that was
Yes,
great,
that's
there's
right.
still
That's
something
right.
else. That
That's
and then
right.
And then there are those sessions where it's just like, okay, that was the root under the root, under the root, under the root,
Yeah.
massive shift.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Amazing. That's right. I'm actually
Yeah.
just about finished studying a modality called root cause therapy, which is
Oh, interesting.
really amazing. I think you
Huh.
would enjoy looking at
Yeah,
it as
I will.
another version of what you're speaking about. I'm really excited to start practicing it.
Oh, very cool.
So, Jenny, we could talk for hours. I'm
We
I'm
could.
really
You and I
just
could. I know. I'm like,
I'm
it's
just getting
definitely,
started. Can we do a part 2?
we can definitely do a part 2. Yeah, I think we should go camping together in the woods for a couple
I
days.
would really
I
like
really
that.
do.
I would really, really like that, Jenny. Thank you. There's definitely a part of my spirit that's like, oh, another sister, man. Like, there's definitely,
Totally.
you know one when you see one. It's so funny. Oh, well, I just adore this. I guess to wrap it up for today,
Mhm.
what I'd love to hear from you is speaking to someone like my friend Jay. Actually, let's use another example. So I'm a martial artist, and there's a beautiful young woman in my martial arts community who has POTS, and it's really
Mm,
affecting her ability to,
mm.
learn spinning kicks and do all
Oh,
those sorts of things.
bet. Mhm.
So if you're speaking to that person, what's your message for that person? What's your message for her? Like when she's young, she's
Yeah.
healthy, like
Yeah.
what's your message for her?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say don't believe that your diagnosis is your destiny, and to always keep looking, knocking on doors for what it is that
Yeah.
you need to address your root cause so that your body can get out of this dysregulated state.
Yeah.
POTS and autonomic, it's a dysregulated autonomic nervous system. It's
Yeah.
reacting to something else. You need to
Yes.
figure out what is that thing it's reacting to. Again, it's
Yeah.
not going to be an overnight cure. There's no magic pill that I'm saying here, yet there are known paths that you can work on to get your body back into balance. And so,
Yeah.
and the other thing I would say to her, because she practices martial arts, you know the power of your mind and your body, and you know how the energy flows in your body. So this
Yeah.
is tool that you can, with guidance, begin to tap into and use to
Mm.
begin to shift how your body is experiencing this. So,
Yeah. Cool advice. I love that so much, Jenny. And how can people find you?
the best thing is to go to my website, which is, get a pen. It's drjennytufenkian.com. That's drjennytufenkian.com. On the website, you can see my different offerings. If you'd
Mm,
like to take a quiz, I have a quiz where you can uncover what your root cause might be. And I go through the same algorithm I go through when I'm talking with clients.
fantastic.
And if you're interested in talking to me to see if we're a good match for either the group program or for one-on-one work, you can apply. And if you just want some free stuff, you can also fill out the application and just tick off free.
That's amazing. Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for your generosity with us today and sharing your story and your wisdom and your insight and your incredible expertise. I can see you know your stuff, and it's a real honor to talk about it with you. So it's beautiful to meet you. I'm going to be in touch. I'm going to be following, and I think we might need to do a part 2 pretty soon.
Yeah, that's great. I'm totally game. Thank you so much for having me. It's been just a joy to talk with you and for you
Thanks.
to introduce me to everyone out there that's listening. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a
Thank
great
you
day.
so
Yeah.
much, Jenny. This has been a production made with love, and I will continue to offer the best possible resources to assist you in staying connected and reconnecting, if you've lost connection, to your deeper purpose and your deeper meaning, so that you can go out and make the big change that I know that you are called to do. If you know another woman who might enjoy this, please share it with her. Leave a review, get in touch with me on socials or inside the Soul Mama community through the website in the show notes. I really love connecting with women on this journey. It's seriously what I am here to do. And I absolutely love bringing these conversations to you. So anything you can do to help me spread the word really helps it reach more women who need this special magic. Thank you for being here. I'll see you soon.